The news this year was full of stories about trouble in our largest city, from gunfire to homicide, an epidemic of bicycle theft and shoplifting, too. Just this week, the Church Street retailer Outdoor Gear Exchange announced it's forced to hire beefy security guards outfitted with body cameras, an effort to interrupt rampant shoplifting and smash and grab theft, after suffering $20,000 in losses in the month of October alone. LL Bean identified shoplifting as a key reason for its decision to move from downtown Burlington earlier this year. So, where are the police, you ask? Well, they're now forced to prioritize higher-level calls. Burlington's lost half its sworn officers, many resigning since 2020 due to politics from the city council, which had voted to defund the department. The council, under pressure from the mayor, has since reversed itself, raising salaries to the highest in the state. But rebuilding this $17 million agency, as you will hear this morning, is a long process. John Murad, welcome back to NBC5 In Depth.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad to be here, Stuart.
Well,
Thank you.
We're thrilled to have you. A lot to talk about since your last visit here. First of all, the summer was tough. Rarely a week went by, sometimes several times a week, when you didn't have a major incident of gun violence. We've had 3 homicides?
4 homicides.
4.
Yeah.
Record number of gunfire incidents. Does seem to have calmed down, though, in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
You're relieved.
I am relieved. I look around this beautiful studio and I look for some wood to knock on as we talk about that. We have seen a downtick in that kind of activity. We're grateful for that. I think a lot of it has to do with some really incredible investigatory work by the men and women of the Burlington Police Department Detective Bureau, by great partners at the ATF, partners in the state's attorney's office. We made several very important arrests of people we believe were drivers of that violence. And so, we're in a stage right now where, of the incidents where a person was struck, shootings, we've had closures on about 80% of them. Of our murders, we're at 100%. 100% of those 4 murders have seen closure with arrests or in the case of a murder-suicide, knowledge of what happened there. So yes, it has been a downtick. It was a very stressful summer in that regard. But I think that we've seen some great work in order to try to move forward from that, and that includes a sense of a doubling down by the community on a desire for solutions around this, and a sense that this should not stand.
Wouldn't be many who would disagree with that, but on election night I was chatting with an established downtown Burlington business person who I asked, how's downtown? Terrible, he said. And it was all due to the crime problem and the perception of crime problem.
Sure.
Congratulations on the apprehensions, but is there a common thread here? What happened this summer and fall?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that I think is going to occupy criminologists for times to come, both here and nationally. We've seen a phenomenon nationally around an uptick in crime, particularly gun violence, but we've also seen a sense of a dissolution of public order in a lot of our communities around the country. Here in Burlington, these two things are not directly related. The people who are committing gun violence in our community are not the people who are creating a general sense of disorder in our downtown, for example. But it's an unfortunate truth that when officers on patrol and in the Detective Bureau are focusing on gun violence in that way, they do not have the same bandwidth to focus on the kinds of day-to-day disorder that we may see that really do make a big difference for members of the public. The truth is that many of those gun violence incidents occurred in the late night hours, in places where there were very few folks, not all of them. We had some very high profile ones in the center of downtown, like City Hall Park. But we've also seen incidents that are in, empty parking garages or are in far-flung parts of the city at the small wee hours. People aren't directly affected by those. They are far more directly affected by what they see in the downtown core with regard to things that give them a sense of a lack of public safety. We don't see data that necessarily comports with that. We do see certain kinds of crime category tick up, but we don't see, for example, dangerous crime that affects people visiting the downtown core. But that sense that something is different is absolutely there. And it's something that has affected our neighbors and our business partners and the people who make our city strong.
Can you give me an example of a category in which people think the sky is falling, and yet the data just does not bear that out?
Well, I think that an example of that is that we have seen upticks in certain kinds of crimes, specifically with regard to the 5-year average, and yet we are also seeing, progress in some of those categories. Burglary, for example, is higher than the 5-year average, but it's better than it was the last 2 years. And so we're able to say that, okay, some of these conditions have in fact had a certain amount of progress made. Others have not. We have seen a spike, in larcenies, and a lot of this is driven by a myriad of factors. We have the after effects of a global pandemic, and while I don't wish to overstate those effects, they are real, and we have a polity, an entire country that's been affected by that. We also have an increase in drug use. We are seeing tremendous spikes in overdose. Both fatal and non-fatal. We're seeing an increase in certain types of drugs. We are seeing more and more fentanyl rather than opioids proper that we used to have seen, whether that was over-the-counter opioids or heroin. And we're also seeing an increase in crystal meth. And that is a different kind of drug as well, and can kind of create different kinds of reactions and a different impact on those using it, which can sometimes be seen or felt by people who observe those who are using it, for example, in the downtown core.
The New York Times recently profiled the circumstances in our city. I think the headline was "The Bicycle Thieves of Burlington VT."
Yes.
You had a nice photograph, and there were the mayor was included, the state's attorney, but the gist was that lower level crimes, quality of life issues were going unpunished. Because you don't have the people. Is that accurate?
I think that certainly we are not able to address as many conditions as we used to, and we don't like it as police officers and as a police department. We have built a lot of capacity to address certain kinds of quality of life condition that aren't just about police officers. We have unarmed, non-sworn officers called community service officers. We have more of those than we have ever had. We use those to address noise complaints, for example, to address certain kinds of animal complaints and traffic complaints. The ability to have them and deploy them is really important because our sworn resources, sworn police officers, are far lower than they've ever been, and they can't do everything they used to do. I think the most important part of that article was something that the mayor said. It had to do with the notion that it takes a lot longer to fix something than it does to break it. And we do have a department that is different than it used to be. How we rebuild it and make it strong again is probably the single most important thing that's in front of me and that occupies my days.
When you say fix something, you mean rebuild the police department after the council defunding resolution?
The council's decision to decrease the department by 30% through attrition was something that had a very quick impact. Certainly it was realized within less than a year. We're now at a place where we are far below the number that the council envisioned. They took us from 105 authorized to 74 authorized. We're currently at 62. And of those 62, about 54 are actually capable of being deployed. Others are, fortunately, we have some in the academy. That's good, but they're not deployable right now, but they soon will be. Have a couple on, long-term injury, long-term military. But yes, that diminishment from 105, usually actually about in the high 90s, to where we are right now, which is 50s, absolutely has an impact. You cannot cut an agency in half and expect it to do exactly what it used to do. And so what we're learning to do is do different things. We're learning to try to focus in on the parts we really need to, and we are learning to build other resources, including those community service officers, including in-house social workers that we developed. I came up with a plan to create something called our community support liaisons with the mayor's support and the city council's approval as well, and being able to have that in-house capacity so that we can address issues around houselessness, around substance use disorder, around chronic mental health. Those are incredibly incredibly important things for us to be able to serve our community the way our community's told us it wants to be served, which is not to have an armed officer at everything.
Right.
But I think we've also learned over the course of this past 2.5 years, especially as we had a relatively tumultuous summer, as you pointed out, that people do want police officers. They do need police officers. And ultimately, police officers can do things that those other roles I talked about can't. Those other roles can do things police officers can't too. That's the point of having them. But we need good police officers, and that's a key component of this rebuild.
Let's take a break, and we'll
Sure.
come back and talk about that with Acting Burlington Police Chief John Murad in just a moment. Back with Acting Chief John Murad. Do your rank and file officers get that the community wants them, that they appreciate them? That was not the message that the Council's resolution sent.
I think I certainly know that I try to impress that upon them every chance I get, that this is a community that does want good policing. I do believe they know that. I know that they encounter it at times on the street, they encounter it in the work that they do, and I think that they do know that there is a plurality, a strong plurality or majority really of our community that does want police. You know, there is a component of any community who believe in the concept of police abolition or of other things. I think ultimately those are extreme positions. I don't think they're realistic positions. I think that we have always needed to have an agreed upon legitimate source of order and governance that ultimately has to project from the government and to obey and enforce the law. I think everybody who has a reasonable sense of how a community works understands that. And we just want to make certain that we're doing it as well as we can.
You're coming up on 3 years in the acting chief's role. You're not going anywhere?
I'm not. I was born in this community. I grew up in this community. I was incredibly fortunate to get to come back to this community after many years away in other kinds of roles and departments, and I have no intention of going anywhere.
The November Chief's report to the Burlington Police Commission, which is just out, does detail some of your extensive efforts to recruit. Let's talk about officers. Number one, you alluded in the last segment that you hope to have a pretty good group off to the police academy in February.
Yeah.
But what's your timeline to rebuild in a meaningful way your rank and file?
So as I said, you know, we're at 62 actual, and the current headcount authorization is 87. I would love to think about that a little bit as well, but we're pretty far away from it right now. And
What's that mean? It's pretty far away.
Well, I mean that we're talking about, you know, for us to grow by 25 plus officers over the course of a period of time is going to be a couple of years, and perhaps several years. This is something that the mayor and I articulated in the budget that the mayor presented to the city council this year. He, in working very closely with the city council, got a very strong budget. The mayor has been completely supportive of the police department, was opposed from the get-go to the notion of diminishing the headcount of the police department, has real beliefs in reform and ways in which we can improve policing, but is incredibly supportive of this agency. He worked with the city council to get a strong budget. He worked with the city council to get an incredible contract for our police officers. And so with those tools, I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to rebuild and that we'll be able to do it in a reasonable timetable. But it is going to be a timetable. It is not something that can happen tomorrow.
I get that. And you're not the only employer who's looking for help. You need dispatchers as well.
Yes, we do.
I know that.
Yeah, our dispatchers, you know, dispatch is an incredibly difficult job, and we have some really terrific dispatchers, but we are down to 4 when we are authorized for 12, and that's a real stretch. We have part-time dispatchers who assist us. We are putting officers who are dispatch qualified into that room, including supervisors, and we are seeking to rebuild there. So we're offering a really competitive salary for that work, and And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to attract some people who are communicative, calm, compassionate, and competent, because ultimately that's what we really need in that room. You are a lifeline for a community. You're certainly a lifeline for the men and women who are police officers or community service officers or community support liaisons, and you have to be able to hear the public, help the public, and then make certain that the public gets the resources it needs.
$33.64 starting pay.
Yes, that is not bad for an hourly wage. I think it's terrific for an hourly wage, and I think it's deserved for the work that they do. It is stressful, difficult work. There's no denying that, but it's meaningful work.
But as we go into the colder weather months, you think that simply by virtue of the weather, things tend to calm down. We tend not to see the sort of the violent crime that really plagued our city.
Once again, I'm looking around the studio for some wood.
Right.
I certainly do think that there is a pattern in which cold weather does slow things down. That's always been the case. We're hoping that's the case because we'll use this as an opportunity to do some training that we need to do some of that rebuilding work that we need to do, and then be ready to face the warm weather when it comes back.
Acting Chief John Murad from the Burlington Police Department, thanks very much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks very much for this opportunity, and it's great to see you.
So, a handful of officer candidates heading to the Vermont Police Academy in February. The chief is excited about that, but reminds us that after 16 weeks there, the new grads are paired up with a current officer and will not be out patrolling on their own until next fall. The period